Hello everybody. Sorry I'm not able to be with you at the face-to-face class, so I'm recording. My comments are about the slides. I'm in Unit 2, starting on slide 24. It says Health Status and Healthcare Utilization. So let's go. This whole chapter is mostly about what's driving the use of healthcare services in our country. So we're going to talk about death and disability and their causes, what different diseases use resources at what rate, and some theories around healthcare utilization, and also disparities based on access. So on slide 26, you'll see in 2007, the life expectancy of people all over the world. And you'll see in the United States, males are expected to live to about age 75 and females to about 80. And that puts us at about 17th worst in the United States as far as mortality goes. So there are 16 other countries that live longer than we do. So I'm gonna look up really quick here on the Google what 2017 was. 2017 life expectancy and infant mortality. Let's see what it is. Looking up the country comparison. Let's see what it says. Well, it didn't work. Let's see. So I found 2016. And it says, just one second, please. Well, in 2016, the United States ranks 26th. So we've actually dropped with an average life expectancy of 79 years between men and women. So, as in, we've got a long way to go to get better at this. So just know that, and that's what that slide's about. So on slide 27, it shows what healthcare spending for those same countries. This is in 2004. But based on percentage. And in the United States in 2004, about 15% of the GDP, gross domestic product. So that's all businesses that are owned by United States companies, and all of the productivity and economic benefit that they generate. That's GDP. It's really an economic measure. And of the those 17 selected countries, we spend the most per capita on healthcare. In 2004, it was 15.2%. We're currently spending about a little over 17%. And it comes out to be, I think, between $7,000 and $8,000 per person is being spent on healthcare in the United States. That's a lot. It is a tremendous amount. One of the lowest ones, if you look on the list, let's see which is the lowest. Looks like Cuba. They only spend $230 per year on healthcare. Not so great. So, slide 28, basically what kills us. And this hasn't changed all that much in the 14 years, 15 years since this original was. It's still heart disease. We have a tremendous problem with heart disease in our country. Cancer, any disorder that causes a lack of blood flow to the brain, so that's like stroke, stuff like that. Lower respiratory disease, so that's chronic lung problems, especially lower lung problems. Accidents, which would be like car accidents, stuff like that. Diabetes, Alzheimer's. True Alzheimer's will ultimately kill you. The thing about Alzheimer's is you don't know if you had Alzheimer's until after you die, and then they take a look at your brain. Other than that, it's suspected because they're correlational things that they can come up with, but it's not for sure until they actually look at your brain. The flu is ranked number 8, so it's the 8th leading cause of death in our country. That's why people push for flu vaccinations, and I know there's a lot of people that don't believe in it, but flu vaccinations do overall decrease the prevalence of an incidence of death related to pneumonia in our country. Nephritis or nephrotic syndrome, which is kidney, for those of you that had language of medicine, neph means kidney. So kidney disease is number 9. And then infections, septicemia infections. And a lot of those, I hate to say it, happen in the hospital. Infection is one of the biggest causes. So that's what kills us. On slide number 29, slide number 28 was what kills us overall, everybody, and slide 29 is what kills our babies. Chromosomal abnormalities is the number 1 killer of babies in our country. And then you can read this as well as I, but disorders related to short gestation and low birth weight. So that's sort of a failure to thrive, if you ever heard that, if they just don't do real well. Accidents, respiratory disease, bacterial infections, things like that. So on slide 30, talks about not what kills us, but the chronic condition. So a chronic condition is a disease that you have and you live with. Chronic versus acute. Acute is a disease or an accident or something that happens, and it happens fast and comes on fast, and like an emergency or something like that. Chronic means that it lingers on and on and on. And heart disease is the number one chronic condition among adults in the country. So heart disease and heart attack, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, stroke, again, another coronary issue. Cancers, all cancers rank really high. Of all cancers, breast, colorectal, lung, prostate, and skin are the top ones. And then chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Obstructive pulmonary disease are blocking of the airways. So, people kind of suffocate. So, and then asthma, which is another big one. So that's what keeps us down. Arthritis and diabetes, we have a lot too. Another big problem we have in our country that drives a tremendous amount of healthcare utilization, so it means it's really, really expensive, is chronic obesity, and that's slide 32. We have a very high prevalence of obesity in our country. Overall, they're 32% and I think we're up to about 35% since this has been printed out or run. We're at about 35%, excuse me, of all adults in the United States are considered overweight, and that's not good. So among white populations, non-Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, white. So white populations have the highest prevalence of about 34% of we plain white folks are obese. So that's not good. And that's measured by body mass index. Another big problem that we have in our country is mothers or mothers-to-be, so pregnant women, not getting prenatal care. It's a big problem. And there is causal correlations between not getting prenatal care and then complications after the birth of the baby, which then leads to death and chronic disease among babies. But yeah, I mean, you can look at slide 33. It's kind of a depressing one. Is that what percentage of people are receiving prenatal care? The good thing is that 83, almost 84% of all pregnant women get prenatal care. But again, still, it's pretty high. So take a look at that one. All right. So what drives up use? Disparities, future orientation, immutable factors, and mutable factors. So I'm on slide 34. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, let's talk about a behavior model, and this is in the book as well. It's something good to give you a quiz on. But you'll see the picture going from left to right on slide 35 is that people have predisposing factors, which could be demographics, social structure, or your health beliefs. So I think I mentioned in class that Freudiani men generally have heart disease. So that's a predisposing factor. And then something, so I'll use myself as an example. So I'm doing great right now, but something maybe in my personal life or something like that might be an enabling factor. Let's say all of a sudden I stop taking care of myself. Maybe I lose my job or my wife leaves me or something, and all of a sudden I start just chowing on the potato chips and drinking heavily and all that kind of stuff. That could be an enabling factor that triggers whatever my genetic makeup is for my body to react and trigger, the factors for my heart disease. So you have predisposing factors, things like my demographics, which that's it. That's an example. How about social structure? That's another one, predisposing factor. Is that what if I lived in an environment where we didn't have good fresh food or anything healthy or anything like that, or I guess that's it. The chronic diseases and obesity and poor health behaviors are correlated not only with those other things, but correlated with socioeconomic status and social standing, which is kind of an interesting thing if you like sociology. And then health beliefs. That is another predisposing factor. If I were in the classroom, I would ask you, what health belief would be a predisposing factor that would make you or your family perhaps more susceptible to the flu? Well, if your health belief is that the flu shot is not good, maybe it's against your religion or it's against your opinions or something like that, that would be a predisposing factor that might make you more susceptible. Oh, just to give you a heads up, that's my dog. She came over to say hi. She's wondering who I'm talking to, but no, she's leaving. So So those are predisposing factors: demographics, social structure, health beliefs. Enabling resources could be personal, like I talked about, like something happened, or in the community, something triggered it, which then generates a need, which then generates use of health services. So you have to have predisposing factors, an enabling resource, personal or community, which helps identify a need, and then you actually use resources to help yourself out. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I hope so. So now I'm on slide 36. Death rates per 1,000 for people for selected disease by race and gender. I thought we already talked about this. Heart disease kills a bunch of us. These are just the breakdowns of numbers. I listed the higher ones before, but these are the breakdowns of actual numbers. Cerebrovascular accidents, so stroke and occlusions in the head. Cancer, lower respiratory disease. HIV, which is another big one. It's not killing as many people today as it did years and years ago. It's now become more of a chronic illness because people get treatment. But it still kills a bunch of people. Motor vehicle injuries, homicide, rounded out. So it's death rate per 100,000 on there. So diseases of the heart, 261. There are 261 deaths per every 1,000 people for that selected disease. So that means 1 out of 4 people, if they have a chronic disease, they're going to die from heart disease. I know, that's huge, gigantic, 1 out of 4. So look around. Oh, you're not in the classroom. But if you did, 1 out of 4 of you are going to have heart disease. It might kill you. So that's kind of sad. Then we have breast cancer death rates. That's a big one because I don't want to call it epidemic, but there's a very, very high prevalence and incidence. Death rates per 1,000 on that population is actually going down among all populations. But let's see, what do we have? The death rate per 1,000, this is old information, 2005. So, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, is for white non-Hispanic folks, 23 deaths per 100,000 for heart disease, for breast cancer. That's for white populations. For black populations, it's 33. So 23 to 33, 10 more people per 100,000 die in the black communities versus the white communities. And then Native Americans, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic populations are significantly less. It's less than, it's about half the death rate per 100,000 for them. So number of new cases. Number of new cases, though, kind of go along with that white, non-Hispanic folks get newer cases of breast cancer every year, which isn't good. And for white folks, it's about 133 per 100,000 new cases every year. So we have about 23 people dying from it and 133 people getting it per 100,000. Which brings us to the last slide on that one, which just shows percentage. What says 5-year cancer survival rate. Survival rate for breast cancer is going up significantly. We're at about 90% for white folks are surviving. For black folks, it's about 78%. So that is chapter 4. I will do chapter 5 in just a sec. So see you in a minute.